So this is the second part of computer software. So the second part of part A. So um, this part is basically talking about utility and application software. Most of you probably know most of this already, especially with application software. It's things like Word and different types of applications you can use on Windows or Chrome or Mac or anything like that. So most of you will know this, but obviously this is going to be very useful for um, revision, and obviously you might get asked questions on it. So it is going to be one full video, but that's because the content in it there's not a lot, so I'm going to try and rattle through it as much as I can. So please watch it because it's going to be very, very, very useful for you. Um, so that being said, um, this is just going to talk about utility software, application software, and then using open source or proprietary software. So it is quite a quick one. It's not very long at all. Um, so utility software is obviously software that runs alongside the operating system. It's literally just used for making the operating system run a lot better, and obviously making the hardware run better as well. So utility software will usually run alongside it to make things a lot quicker. Um, defrag, so that's this at the top right. We've already gone over defrag before, but obviously that's a software utility that helps speed up how data is read on your hard drive. That's why obviously it's used alongside the operating system to try and make it quicker. Another one obviously is antivirus. Antiviruses are obviously used to sort of stop any viruses that go onto your computer and delete them, quarantine them. So when it's talking about utility softwares, it's other softwares that just make your system run better. A game, for example, would not be utility software because obviously it's just used for you. It's not getting the computer to run better because it's not. You're using all the computing runtime to run a game. Obviously, as you can sort of see, I've already sort of left these on here, but softwares are obviously used on there for multiple different things, and obviously that's the list there. I'm not going to go through it because obviously you can read that yourself. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, so you might have to give these as examples and say what would be a good example for, say, um, if you potentially lost data, what would you do? And you could say something like, well, in future I'd back up data to make sure that if it does get lost, I've got a backup of it. Simple as that. That's all utility software is. So application software, like I've said before, this enables sort of apps to um, interact with the PC and do a lot of different things. So Word's obviously one of them. Um, but there's all sorts. So obviously you can use it for work, like Word or Visual Studio Code if you've been using that for coding. Whereas obviously for leisure, like gaming, watching videos, stuff like that, you can do as well. So that's what application software is for. It's to they just are used for running specific things on your operating system. So your operating system will run that software and be like, right, we'll do this. The software basically tells the operating system what it's doing, and it will perform an action depending on what you're doing with it. It's that simple. Obviously, like I've said before in a previous video for operating systems, so please watch the operating systems videos if you haven't already watched them. But some applications are built especially for businesses, so like I've sort of shown people before, you can get McDonald's sort of kiosks and other kiosks at other sort of places like let's say Tesco's or Morrison's or anything like that, where they've got a specific thing on. So if we have a look at this, like you've probably seen these before at some point. These are specific apps that are designed for basically a large tablet. It's usually Windows based. I've seen these be Linux based as well, but they literally just run one app. So that's an application piece of software that's running that's just solely run on that operating system. Obviously, you could technically use that operating system to run anything else, but it's primarily used for running that. So that would be a good example of one. Obviously, things have been built specifically for businesses before. So React.js was built specifically for Facebook to um, do things on its user interface. So basically, it was used to, if something happened in the background, React, hence why it's called React, would update the user interface. So that's why it's called React. That was specifically designed for Facebook, but now it's being used for all sorts of different things. A lot of different companies use React now because it's quite a good piece of programming code that was created for that. But it's counted as application software because um, it is an application programming language. You can use it to program apps with, so that's why it sort of comes under that. Obviously, for organisations, applications that, as you will clearly know, are used to obviously cut costs to make things quicker, easier. Increase production. Um, a lot of things are automated nowadays through application software, so you can basically be like, right, I'm going to say scan. I need to send, I don't know, say 100 letters out to all my clients saying about my newest offers for, say, like, I don't know, Morrison's or something like that. They could send emails out instead and let a software system do it for you. So you literally send one email and that'll send out to hundreds, maybe even thousands of people. So that's what application software is primarily used for. Um, Obviously, a lot of industry will use them. Some you won't even realize where they come from, like React.js. Like, there's so many companies that use a lot of applications that you won't even think that they use it. I imagine Google use a lot more Microsoft based software than they would like to admit. For example, they will use Microsoft based systems somewhere down the line. That will be inevitable because Microsoft will do things better than Google can, and vice versa. So again, like most things, you have to talk about factors that affect the choice. So obviously, it could be stuff like user experience, cost. Obviously, if some things already exist in a company, they may not want to change it because obviously they're used to it. Depends on if they think it's going to increase productivity, it's going to be cheaper in the long run, stuff like that. Obviously, a lot of utility software is based around performance and security. And obviously storage, because some companies need a lot of storage space and it costs them a fortune to keep upgrading storage space rather than have utility software that sort of cleans up that stuff and deletes it. Um, Obviously, application software is determined through what they need it for. Performance is a concern, but user need and productivity is obviously the largest factor. If you have a company that has employees that don't know how to use this new fancy piece of software that is really good on performance, like say they change from Windows systems and move to Google systems, but they don't know how to use the Google systems, it could be disastrous because you'd have to train all your staff. Like, they won't know how to use it, and they could get things wrong. Like, that would cause even more issues, potentially like legal issues or other costs elsewhere if something goes wrong. Whereas, it might have better performance than a Windows system, but that's the choice you've got to make. So performance is not usually a factor in that sort of thing. So for application software, performance is not a factor. It's usually for the utility software, yeah, but application software, no. Application software is just about how well your company can use it and if it increases your productivity to your workers, which obviously it should do. That's the whole point of getting it. So obviously, Microsoft Office is quite a common set of programs that people use to obviously do Word documents, presentations. You can do email through it, all sorts of stuff. But obviously, a lot of people have some prior knowledge to this because somewhere down the line, if you have somebody in who knows very little about computers, they probably will have used, say, Microsoft Word at some point because it's quite a commonplace thing now. So it might be that they choose something like Microsoft Office for a set of applications because people have used it. They know that people have used it, so it makes it easier for them to sort of be like, right, well, we'll pay the extra cost, or will take a hit in performance because people will know how to use it, and it will be quicker and better in the long run to have people know how to use it already than train them up and use a system that's different. But what I want you to think about is like what else would be useful for a specific scenario. So what happens if, say, you've got a company that's wanting to upgrade from, say, using something like a 3D modeling system like Blender to then changing it to something like Maya. So they're two completely different uh, 3D modeling softwares. But why would you want to upgrade from one to the other? Is it going to be useful to upgrade to one to the other? These are the sort of things that I'm going to want you to sort of uh, answer, because you might be asked this in an exam potentially. So going straight into open source software, obviously, like I've mentioned in the operating systems videos previously, it's usually free and obviously available to be customized. Like that's the whole point of open source software. It's free, and then you can customize it however you want. You can see all the code for it. It's not private. You can do what you want. Um, so usually you'll have a department that will work on changing this for a company so they can use it for a specific purpose. Like something like Graphene OS. Like have a look at what Graphene OS is, because that was designed specifically to do a specific task for Android phones. So usually a team will work on that specific thing. Obviously, you can download things off the internet to add to it. So you could download like a set of libraries that might make something quicker for that open source piece of software. However, it's sort of touch and go, because you could potentially get something that's malicious from it. So if you go to a website thinking, "Oh, I found this thing that I can add on to, say, Linux," and it might be like, I don't know, say it's a presentation piece of software, and it's something you can add to the system that changes the operating system itself to run better. If you get it from a source that's not reliable, it could just be a virus or something even worse. So you've got to be very careful when using open source software, because if you go to the wrong places and download the wrong things, it can cause more harm than good, really. So it is all dependent on stuff like that. Um, Obviously, like I've mentioned before, Linux is an open source piece of software, so I'd want you to at least know a few different open source piece of softwares. This software that's just popped up on screen is something called GIMP. That's a graphics program. It's not the other thing, because I know so many people who do think it's the other thing, but GIMP is a graphics piece of software. It's very, very similar to Photoshop. You can download plugins for this and have extra features and stuff that people have made for it. It's very, very powerful. It's portable. I would recommend using it instead of using Photoshop if you're not wanting to go down the cost route. But again, it's like stuff like GIMP. Um, GIMP is a piece of uh, obviously software that's free, but Adobe has Photoshop that have got inbuilt tools that probably run a bit better than GIMP, but that's the risk you take. Do you pay for something that you know is going to be of high quality, and you can have these tools on hand, but on the other hand, like you might want something that Adobe don't offer, and it might be that you can create your own tool for GIMP, or somebody else create the tool for GIMP, and you can just add it on. But obviously, then the risk is it could be something malicious, or it might not work at all, and it might not be of quality. So that's the sort of risk reward with using open source software. Uh, it can be good for customization, but you've got to be very careful on security, and you've got to be very careful on, you know, um, if you do want something that works well, the open source software might not be for you. You might want to buy something proprietary, which has stuff already inbuilt and you know will work because it's been tried, tested, and you also have support behind it. So, obviously, we've been talking about open source software. Proprietary software is software that costs and is obviously bought as is. So that means obviously you can't change the thing. Um, places like Microsoft, Apple, Adobe, they charge you a fee. You pay for their software, and then you can use their software. So you get a license for it, and then you can use it. Because of that, you can't see what their code is, and you cannot alter it. Obviously, they give you customization options where you can, like, say Windows, you can change resolution and time and date and stuff like that. You can change like a few things, but you can't change how the system works at its most core level. Same for an Apple product, same for an Adobe product. So it depends on what you need it for. Um, Obviously, because you have to buy the license for it, it'll add extra costs for a business because a business has to pay for the business license. That could be anywhere between a few hundred to a few 100,000. It depends on what it is. So the proprietary software is sort of good because obviously you can get support available from other people that use it, so other users, and obviously the company itself. So you could ask the company, this isn't working, or I'd like this feature added into it, and they could develop it for you. Again, they might charge a price for it, they might do it for free. If they do it for free, they can obviously update the software and add features to it, or address bugs or anything like that. So depends on what software you buy, and who's sort of behind it. Some companies will just sell you the product and not really update it. Depends on if they do support it. And a lot of companies like Adobe, Windows, Apple will update your systems quite frequently with new bug fixes and updates for extra features like that. That's why you buy proprietary software, because you get all this nice stuff for free usually. But like I've said before, obviously it's restrictive because it might miss some features that obviously open softwares could have things developed for it. So it's that sort of double-edged sword of which one do you go for. Proprietary software tends to be the most safest one because it usually has the main features built in that you want, but it might be that you want that security as well, because proprietary software tends to be a bit more secure because obviously they don't leak their code that's behind it out. So it's a lot more secure than something that's open source because everybody can see the code, so they know exactly how it's working. It does really depend on stuff like that. This is a good example. So sort of Apple Pay, it's on Apple systems, but you have to buy their systems. So you have to buy the Apple Pay systems in order to have people come up with their phones with Apple Pay on it. It's very sneaky because that's basically saying in order for you to use Apple Pay in shops, the shops have to buy our Apple Pay system. Obviously, that gives Apple a lot more money, but it could potentially restrict, who you sell to if you don't have Apple Pay. So it's this thing of, do you get proprietary software for things like this or not? It does depend. So that's it for this video. I know we're getting to about 20 minutes now, but it goes over some things that are quite quick. So just sort of different softwares and open source and proprietary software. But you will need to again revise this quite a lot because they will definitely ask you about utility and application software and sort of the differences or choices for them. It's quite heavily themed. That's why obviously again I've done a video like this. Proprietary software and open source software. Obviously, you can have open source and proprietary uh, operating systems. So that will definitely be asked because you can have some, either softwares, utility softwares, or operating systems that come under either open source or proprietary. So that will get asked. So please, 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 please make sure you revise it, and you will be getting tested on this at some point. So please watch this video. If you feel like you've fallen asleep through it, rewatch it again. Put some music on or something in the background. Make it exciting. I'm trying to make it exciting by putting my face on screen more and being a bit more athletic in my voice, hopefully, I think. But just let me know if there's anything you want me to do to improve. But that's it on utility software, application software, open source, and proprietary software.